Okay, so good afternoon to all of you. Okay, so number of questions I have taken today in the economic geography part, and today I'm not giving feedbook. This feedbook will be uploaded for you on the portal because in the feedbook there is more of figures are more today. Okay, so these are colored figures. वो वैसे भी काम की चीज़ें नहीं होंगी because of black and white में आएगा पूरा. So I'll just be uploading the feedbook for today. Okay, so let us without spending further time, let us talk about question number one. And question number 9 in fact it is of economic geography. उसमें एक word question booklet में missing है. I forget to add contemporary, so I have added in the feedbook, so you can also write it there. So the question is, the contemporary energy crisis is more than mismatch of demand and supply of energy. Examine. So I'll give you 2 minutes. You think how you'll be writing if suppose you are writing this question. Okay. So here the question is talking about contemporary energy crisis. You can understand that this question is very significant and can be asked because uh, the prices of energy in Europe particularly has been on the rise, and number of factors are responsible for this, and not only in Europe, but if you talk about also in Asia, the prices are on the rise. Europe, there is the price rise is too much. Very clearly, this energy crisis started somewhere in June 2021, and it was a kind of, you can say, pandemic hangover which was there. And after that, there was, after a short anthropause, what we call it as, there was the restart of the economy. And during the pandemic, number of infrastructure investment, etc., they stopped. And ultimately, what we find, as the demands rose suddenly after the pandemic, the supply was unable to cope up with it. So that was the reason why the energy prices began to rise. However, you can understand, by February 2022, this has grown into a full grown energy crisis. So, this is particularly related with the Ukraine Russia war, which has led to the disruption of the gas supply, particularly to Europe, if you talk about, and this has driven the energy prices further. Okay. If you look into the contemporary energy, the energy crisis that we are facing today, it has some similarities with the energy crisis which we were facing in 1970s in terms of the price rise which we are seeing. However, there is one big difference, and this big difference is that in 1970 the price of mainly oil, if you talk about, was rising. But if you look into the energy crisis of today, we will be finding that the prices of across the energy resources has risen. So definitely, if you talk about, it is a big concern for the world today, and how we are going to cope up. Now the question here is talking about this contemporary energy crisis, and it is talking about, it is more than the mismatch of demand and supply of energy. So for understanding this question, we need to little bit have a understanding of what essentially energy crisis is. Okay. So I have told you before also, if we talk about the energy crisis, first of all, energy crisis is essentially, what do you understand by energy crisis? Hmm? Can we say energy crisis is a situation where there is steep rise in the prices of energy? Okay, so that is the simple definition of energy crisis, due to which what happens? Its affordability declines. So what is energy crisis? It is a situation where there is sudden increase in the price of energy, due to which it affects affordability and thus availability. Okay, so this is a simple definition of energy crisis. And why, the question arises, why this price of energy is rising? So generally what happens, it is outcome of the mismatch between demand and supply of energy. Demand and supply of energy. ठीक है. So एक तो ये हो गया कि what is energy crisis. But we have to understand it more little bit. So question arises, why this mismatch in the demand and supply can rise. So if we try to answer this why could be outcome of number of reasons. Okay. So if you talk about these number of reasons, one is the economic reasons. And if we are talking about economic reasons, में basically क्या होता है? In economic reasons, essentially we can say that the production of energy is unable to keep pace with the demand. Unable to keep pace with the demand of the energy crisis. ठीक है, so essentially this type of crisis, if it is happening because of economic reason, it is essentially what? It is a kind of Malthusian crisis. ठीक है, clearly here what is happening, we find that, can we say that the technology is unable to upgrade itself at the pace which is required. ठीक है, so it is related with the problem of technological upgradation. ठीक है, तो एक तो ये हो गया, और it could be related with some other economic factors, like it could be related with lack of investment in development of energy resources. This could also be one of the reasons. ठीक है, whatever be the cause, ultimately what happens, there is a rise of demand and supply gap. So it is the economic reasons. However, sometimes this could be outcome of geopolitical reasons. Okay, so another angle from which we can look towards the energy crisis is the geopolitical angle. So if we talk about geopolitical angle, due to the geopolitics that is ongoing in the world, like for example in 1970s, can we say 1970s crisis was outcome of mainly geopolitics, the formation of the cartel of oil producing nations in the form of OPEC, and it led to, they monopolized the oil production and they changed the prices or increased the prices of energy. So that led to the crisis. Here also in on similar line, जब मैंने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले बोला था कि the 1970s crisis और अभी की crisis में similarities हैं. So what are the similarities? There are geopolitical similarities in both the crises. Here it is result of what? It is result of the Russia-Ukraine war. And this Russia-Ukraine war, what it has done, it has essentially led to disruption of supply of gas or natural gas to Europe, and as a result of which globally in other areas where there is availability of gas and energy resources, their prices have increased because there is demand in Europe. ठीक है, so that is one of the factors which can be responsible. ठीक है, एक और चीज मैं बताना भूल गया, जस्ट हियर आई एम जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट हियर द डिमांड. यहाँ पे हमने सप्लाई की, इकोनॉमिक रीजंस में हमने सप्लाई की तो बात की, बट मैं फॉरगेट कर गया डिमांड के बारे में बात करने. तो यहाँ पे एक और डिमांड की भी बात कर लेते हैं जस्ट बिफोर आई कंटिन्यू. तो व्हाट कुड बी द रीजंस ड्यू टू विच द डिमांड कैन राइज? Can we say the reasons can be multifold? Reasons can be there. One important reason can be that it can be related with the population size. Population size. So tell me, can we say that today if you look into the nature of developing countries, so can we say from developing countries there is increase in demand for energy? And one of the primary reasons is definitely the increase in the population size. ठीक है, so again it is related with the population size. It has increased in the developing countries. So that is one reason. और भी रीजन हो सकता है कि द रेट ऑफ कंजम्पशन इंक्रीजेस. ठीक है, सो देयर कैन बी, इट कैन बी रिलेटेड विथ कंजम्पशन रेट. एंड इफ वी टॉक अबाउट कंजम्पशन रेट, अभी का जो पीरियड है पिछले 2 साल का अगर हम पीरियड देखें, तो इफ यू फाइंड, यू विल बी फाइंडिंग वन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. In the temperate regions, there has been very strong heat waves. ठीक है, and also there were mild winters which were there. So all of this, what it has done, it has further increased the demand, the consumption of energy in the developed world. ठीक है, so again there can be, like we talked about, the heat waves have soared up consumption in the developed world, particularly developing में भी बड़ा है no doubt, but developed world में ज़्यादा बड़ा है. So that is also when you are talking about economic reasons, वहाँ पे demand और supply दोनों की बात करनी है. Then geopolitical reasons में, as we are talking about the Russia यूक्रेन वॉर, सो डिसरप्शन हो गया है, so there can be a geopolitical angle associated with it. But not only the geopolitical angle, there can also be social angle. And this social angle, when we are talking about, it is essentially related with the impact of energy crisis variably across the world. ठीक. क्या होता जा रहा है, फिर से बताओ. हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल, वो तो है ही है. ठीक है, वो कंजम्पशन रेट में लिख सकते हो. हाँ हाँ ठीक है, नो डाउट. हम अभी वाला जो क्राइसिस है, ईरान वाला इशू काफी टाइम से चल रहा है. ठीक है, वी आर मोर फोकसिंग अपॉन द इशू विच इज राइट नाउ एट हैंड. ओके, सो इम्पैक्ट ऑफ एनर्जी क्राइसिस इज वेरिएबल अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड. अगर मैं इसकी बात करूं तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, here it was July 21 and So here is the prices of natural gas, and so if you look into first the case of Europe, this has been the rise in the prices of energy in case of Europe. If we compare this with the rise of prices in case of Asia, in case of Asia, it has been quite similar. Although the peaks which were seen in case of Europe, such peaks have not been seen in case of Asia. Okay. However, if you compare this with the prices which have been seen in case of North America, you'll be seeing that it hasn't experienced the same kind of energy crisis. So there is what? There is a social angle, distributional angle of the excess of energy. यस, थोड़ा सा उसमें इशू है आई थिंक, बिकॉज ऑफ विच वो चैट नहीं चल रहा है. Okay, so there is also what? There is a social angle to the energy crisis. And if you talk about no doubt there is an environmental angle, या फिर मैं इसको कह सकता हूं sustainability angle to energy crisis. So you know, we are in the phase of environmentalism, and what we require essentially is that it is pretty much clear that we need to transition to more eco-friendly sources of energy. Okay, what is the problem? What is the crisis today? Can we say the renewable energy development is very much dependent upon the strategic minerals? Okay, and what we find, who are the producers of strategic minerals mainly? Can we say these are those countries, एक चाइना को अगर exception छोड़ दें, तो these are essentially those countries which are not the main consumers of energy. ठीक है? So this is also essentially driving this crisis, because of which the growth that should have been seen in the renewable energy sector, we are unable to see the same type of growth because technology is advancing. The problem today has become what? It has become the availability of those strategic minerals. Okay, whether it is cobalt, whether it is lithium, ठीक है. So there is also association of what? There is also association of an environmental angle. So the contempt, we can say that the present energy crisis is also an environmental crisis. ठीक है. For example, take the case, can we say the present increase in the prices of coal, is it also associated with our commitments to achieve the goals of Paris deal? Yes or no? So again, that has also led to the increase in the prices of the other sources of energy. ठीक है. So there is rise in several or rise in prices of several conventional energy sources, example coal, primarily because of our commitments under the Paris deal. Also, our transition to the renewable energy resources is slower than expected. And as I told you, the reason is that there is scarcity of strategic minerals whose production is controlled by those countries who are not the major consumers of energy. Who are not the major consumers of energy. So there is also an associated environmental angle. ठीक है. Wait, Somikant, I'll talk about what I am just writing here. I'll explain it. अभी हम उस पर बात करते हैं. तो can you understand what is the energy crisis in general and what is the energy crisis in the contemporary time? ठीक है. तो ये नॉलेज अगर मेरे पास है तो नाउ आई विल बी इन अ बेटर पोजीशन टू राइट द आंसर. ठीक है. तो यहां पर कह रहा है कंटेम्पररी एनर्जी क्राइसिस इज मोर देन मिसमैच बिटवीन डिमांड एंड सप्लाई ऑफ एनर्जी. हमने 4 एंगल देखे एनर्जी क्राइसिस के. कैन वी से कि जो 2 एंगल्स हैं, फर्स्ट 2 एंगल्स, दे आर लीडिंग टू मिसमैच बिटवीन डिमांड एंड सप्लाई? यस और नो? तो हम यहां पर क्या कर रहे हैं, फर्स्ट हम बात कर रहे हैं कि हाउ इट इज मिसमैच ऑफ डिमांड एंड सप्लाई. बिकॉज क्वेश्चन में क्या एग्जामिन है, एंड इन एग्जामिन व्हाट वी हैव टू डू, वी हैव टू राइट इन सपोर्ट, वी हैव टू ऑल्सो राइट अगेंस्ट इट. यही करते हैं एग्जामिन में. ठीक है. तो कैन वी से कि 2 पॉइंट्स ऐसे हैं बेसिकली विच आर मोर रिलेटेड विथ द मिसमैच बिटवीन डिमांड एंड सप्लाई. इकोनॉमिक एंगल जो हमने बात किया डिमांड और सप्लाई का, फिर जियोपॉलिटिकल एंगल की वजह से भी डिमांड एंड सप्लाई गैप हो रहे हैं, बट देयर आर मोर एंगल्स एसोसिएटेड विथ. and that in the second part I'll write those angles which are also associated with it. Okay, so there is an environmental angle, there is also a kind of social angle associated with the energy crisis. Okay, so that is why complete understanding of what energy crisis is important, which is there. Yes, if you want, Bharat, you can talk about nuclear hesitancy. If you want to write about nuclear hesitancy, the first point will be the case where energy, you will be writing about energy. Wastage of energy and energy efficiency in social angle. Rather than writing it in social angle, you write it in the first point itself. It is related with technology. मार्क्सिस्ट एंगल हमने डाला है ना, क्यों नहीं डाला है? यहाँ पर जब हम कंजम्पशन रेट की बात कर रहे थे तो मार्क्सिस्ट एंगल तो आ ही गया है. दैट विल कम अंडर जियो पॉलिटिकल. ठीक है, अगर उसको लिखना है तो यू राइट इन जियो पॉलिटिकल. यस यस यस, नो डाउट. देखो, ऑलरेडी एनर्जी राइज, जो एनर्जी के प्राइसेस थे देवर ऑन द राइज. ठीक है, व्हाट हैपेंड, यूक्रेन रशिया वॉर ने उसको और एक्सेलरेट कर दिया. दैट इज द थिंग. In respect of US, why it is not? You can understand why it is not in US, because if you know about US, in recent times, the technological breakthrough has allowed US to become a major producer of natural gas through the shale gas revolution which has occurred in US. Okay? So because of that, they have their own production of natural gas. Comparatively, if you look into the case of Europe and Asia, they are very much dependent upon the supplies which are coming from Middle East and Russia. Okay, so that is how basically you will be writing this answer. This is the framework of writing this answer, because there was the examine part. अगर examine नहीं होता तो हम दो एंगल भी लिखते तो चल जाता. ठीक है, लेकिन बिकॉज एग्जामिन है तो इसलिए हमें दो, बाकी के जो दो एंगल है वो भी लिखने. ठीक है, इससे एक चीज क्लियर है कि जब हम बात करेंगे एनर्जी क्राइसिस की तो हमेशा हमें एक होलिस्टिक पर्सपेक्टिव से सोचना है कि what is essentially an energy crisis. So I have given some figures like what is the production, if you look into various sources of energy and how it is essentially changing. So like for example, you can use it how the share of renewable, if you talk about, has essentially increased. On the other hand, if you look into the case of nuclear energy, how in percentage terms it has actually declined. Many countries, if you talk about, they don't want to invest in that. Just I have given one chart to know about what are the reserves, which today the reserves are there, and ultimately if you talk about how much time they are expected to essentially last. ठीक है, तो ये इसमें नहीं लिखना था if you talk about, because this question was different. Just I have given you, and this is the regional share of the consumption which is taking place in the world. What was in 1973, what it has become in 2010. You can very clearly see that what has happened with the share of China. It has dramatically increased. Okay, so that is also leading to the increase in the demand. This is, you can see the greenhouse gas emissions which are taking place, and you can see that out of the total emissions which are occurring, energy sector has the major chunk. And that means it becomes very pertinent, very important to, if we want to achieve the targets of the Paris deal, at least we want to curb it to 1.5 degrees Celsius. हालांकि अभी ऐसा लग नहीं रहा है, and temporarily it is expected कि इस साल जो El Nino है, it is very strong, so it is also going to raise the temperatures beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius for at least short period of time. We don't know, maybe it can continue for long period of time, but short period के लिए तो होने ही वाला है. So again, if you talk about this, somewhat can be used. Okay, then एक क्वेश्चन था प्रीवियस ईयर में, उसको करते हैं. This is a previous year question. The intensity of energy crisis varies regionally. Soumyakant here is asking a question पूछ रहा है. Isn't social angle more of an example? What do you understand by the social angle? देखो सोशल एंगल से मतलब है हमारा कि इट इज मोर रिलेटेड विद डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. ठीक है. इज द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन टेकिंग प्लेस इन इक्विटेबल मैनर और इट इज नॉट. ठीक है. ऑलवेज वी विल बी फाइंडिंग इन केसेस ऑफ सच क्राइसिस द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन will be uneven. There will be sections who will be more affected by such crisis and there will be sections which will be less affected by such crisis. ठीक है. अगर सपोज करो कि आज की डेट में वर्ल्ड में डिमांड एंड सप्लाई का एक गैप आ जाता है, रियल एक एनर्जी क्राइसिस आ जाती है, विच इज नॉट इफ यू टॉक अबाउट मोर जियो पॉलिटिकल एटसेट्रा, कैन वी से देयर आर एरियाज विच विल बी वर्स्ट अफेक्टेड. लाइक इंडिया का ही अगर हम कंटेक्स्ट देखें तो कैन वी से कि इंडिया में जो एनर्जी स्कार्सिटी है इट इज अनइवनली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड. If you look into the states of, like for example Bihar, if you look into the states of northeast, we will be finding essentially there is more crisis or the more scarcity of energy than in many other states. Like if you go in Maharashtra, Gujarat, comparatively they are well off in terms of the availability of energy. Okay, so when we are talking about the social angle, this is what we mean. Okay. So this was the question. The intensity of energy crisis varies regionally. Explain. Yes, you can write that. लव कुश हिंदी मीडियम का बैच मुश्किल है यार. इतना टाइम ही नहीं मेरे पास. Okay. So the question is asking intensity of energy crisis varies regionally. कैसे लिख सकते थे इसको? वेरी गुड. यहां पे क्वेश्चन पूछा रीजनली. So you'll focus on region or you'll talk about the factors, और इस पे थोड़ी बात करना. Those things will come within the paragraph. Remember, हमेशा जब भी क्वेश्चन को पढ़ना है तो क्वेश्चन में हमेशा प्राइमरी कीवर्ड ढूंढो. प्राइमरी कीवर्ड क्या करता है? हमें आंसर की हेडिंग देता है. ठीक है, तो यहां पर प्राइमरी कीवर्ड क्या है? इंटेंसिटी की जो एनर्जी क्राइसिस है, हाउ इट इज वेरिएबल रीजनली. दिस इज द प्राइमरी कीवर्ड which will give me the headings of the answer. ठीक है. सेकेंडरी कीवर्ड क्या होता है? दिस इज द सेकेंडरी कीवर्ड, और ये मुझे बताता है कि पैराग्राफ के अंदर कैसे लिखना है, हाउ टू राइट विद इन द पैराग्राफ. सपोज यहां पर क्रिटिकली एनालाइज होता तो द वे ऑफ राइटिंग विद इन द पैराग्राफ वुड चेंज. ठीक है, so always focus upon when you are reading the question. So the intensity of energy crisis varies regionally. No doubt we could have taken this framework where we could have talked about continent wise, we could have talked about North America, Europe, CIS, Asia, Africa, Australia. Likewise we could have talked about. एक तरीका तो वो था. दूसरा तरीका मैंने यहाँ पर एक अच्छा मुझे टेक्स्ट मिल गया था, तो I could have given you. What it does, it divides the scenario of energy availability and the future needs into 5 category of nations. ठीक है, तो इस फ्रेमवर्क को भी यूज कर सकते हैं. तो व्हाट आर दीज 5 कैटेगरी ऑफ नेशन? फर्स्ट कैटेगरी ऑफ नेशंस है एफ्लुएंट एनर्जी सिक्योर कंट्री, एंड दीज आर द कंट्रीज वेयर देयर इज नो सच इंपैक्ट ऑफ एनर्जी क्राइसिस. So if you talk about the countries that fall into affluent energy secure archetype have 8% of global population and account for 22% of the global emissions. These countries include mainly Australia, Saudi Arabia, United States, have abundant domestic production of energy and high GDP per capita. These are the countries that are net fossil fuel exporters, including Australia, Qatar and US, and can use domestic production to cover demand against market volatility. ठीक है, so some countries that fall into this archetype are net importers but have high level of domestic security through nuclear power. Like for example, if you talk about France and Belgium are very good example, or fossil fuels like Netherlands and UK for example. These countries are affluent with substantial purchasing power and investment resources. What is the expected future? They are likely to remain energy exporters as energy transition unfolds, but will need to reconsider their energy sources to meet emission targets in the future. ठीक है, so what they can do, इसके बाद इस पैराग्राफ में, नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ में लिखा हुआ है, you can just go through that. Second is affluent countries, but these are energy exposed countries which are facing energy shortage, energy crisis. So if you talk about countries, these countries include countries like Germany, Italy, Japan are among the countries that fall into such category. They account for 7% of the global population and about 13% of the emissions. These countries are also affluent as measured by GDP per capita, but will increasingly get exposed to energy security concerns as the transition unfolds. Several European countries, especially the ones more exposed to fossil imports, like Germany and Italy, fall in this category, also Japan. So these are these countries. Some Middle Eastern countries, including Oman and Kuwait, also belong to this archetype because of the risks they have faced from carbon intensity. For these countries, the transition could represent an opportunity to pivot towards domestic clean energy production. So this is the second type of countries. Here there can be a situation of scarcity and crisis in future because most of them are dependent upon import of fossil fuels. So this is the big problem they are facing, but this is also a kind of opportunity for these countries. Why? Because they have high GDP, they have high technology, and they can transition towards a more cleaner fuels. Okay, so that is the second category. Then if you talk about third, large emission intensive economies, और इसमें मेनली कौन सी है? These are the developing countries which are emitting at very fast rate. China, India, South Africa. The big issue with these countries is almost 37% of the global population is living there, and they together are accounting today for 40% of the global emissions. These countries have relatively low GDP per capita and significant exposure to short-term risks of energy security. Typically, these are result of combination of large fossil fuel imports, and they have carbon intensive economies. These countries typically have significant coal or other fossil fuel presence in power generation and industry. Can we give, suppose अगर हम एग्जाम में लिख रहे होते, can we give the case study of India here? ठीक है. And they have all started taking action in the realm of clean energy. You know, China is one of the best performers in this case. As they transition to low emission economy, they will need to balance meeting growing energy demand with cleaner resources while addressing their reliance on most emission intensive fuels. So this is the problem. Their problem is how to transition. Okay. Also, one problem is these countries have essentially low GDP per capita. So transitioning into the green technologies is not also very easy for them. So this is the third category of countries. Fourth category of countries are developing countries which are naturally endowed with the energy resources. So for example, Brazil, Mexico, Indonesia are the countries which are in this category, naturally endowed economies. They account for 9% of the global population and 5% of the global emissions just. And because they are accounting for just 5% of the global emission, tell me, can they continue to use their own fossil fuels even for the future? Definitely. Okay. So the countries it covers have significant potential power from solar or wind sources as well as critical natural resources such as rare metals to support the energy transition. These attributes put these countries in a position to treat the energy transition as a strategic advantage, as they could use their domestic resources to promote opportunities for economic and social growth. So this is the fourth category of countries which we can talk about. And then comes the fifth category of countries which are at maximum risk. So developing countries at risk economies, they represent 11% of the global population and generate 5% of the global emission. These countries mainly are located where? In Africa, in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, and have mostly agrarian economies. They are disproportionately exposed to climate risks and have limited potential for renewable development. So mainly ये कौन सी countries हैं? These countries are the LDCs. ठीक है? So they have the maximum risk associated with that. Their transition would need to be coupled with the build out of basic infrastructure services and investment in climate adaptation, likely to be possible only with foreign support. Okay, so this is another framework which you can essentially take up. अगर कॉन्टिनेंट वाला फ्रेमवर्क ले रहे हो तो दैट इज ऑल्सो फाइन, बट उसमें बहुत सारी चीजें क्लब हो जाएंगी. लाइक फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ आई टेक साउथ अमेरिका फॉर एग्जाम्पल, so South America में there are countries like Venezuela as well, ठीक है, so which are very important producer of oil, and in their context there is no such energy crisis or energy security issues. So I found this framework to be better than taking the framework of the continents. ठीक है, और जब इसके अंदर एक्सप्लेन करेंगे तो डेफिनेटली वो मिक्स कर दो हाउ देयर इज गैप बिटवीन डिमांड एंड सप्लाई, जो अभी हमने फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन में बात किया. ठीक है, So that is this question. Then क्वेश्चन नंबर 11 पर आते हैं. तो इस साल के लिए ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक है मेरी तरफ से, एनर्जी क्राइसिस. Okay. Then another topic which I have taken up, it is actually belonging to models and theories. So Von Thunen model of agricultural location, it is an economic theory. So I have taken here in the economic geography. So two questions have been taken up, question number 11 and question number 12. एक चीज ध्यान में रखना है तुम लोगों को बहुत क्लियरली. इफ यू लुक इनटू द मॉडल्स एंड थ्योरीज, ठीक है, हाउ क्वेश्चंस हैव बीन आस्क्ड इन द पास्ट, अभी रिसेंट टाइम्स में what type of questions they are asking is something like this. One category of questions they are asking, तो जो नॉर्मल हमेशा जो से जो पूछता है, एक तो क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस, okay. So if you talk about one type of questions they have asked is with respect to critical analysis. Second type of question which they have very frequently asked in recent times is about the contemporary utility. ठीक है, इसका मतलब है कि मुझे मेजॉरिटी ऑफ जो मॉडल्स एंड थ्योरीज दी हुई है उसकी कंटेम्पररी यूटिलिटी ढंग से तैयार करके जाना है. एक और तीसरे तरह का क्वेश्चन पूछने लगा है फ्रॉम पास्ट फ्यू ईयर्स. एंड व्हाट इज दिस थर्ड कैटेगरी ऑफ क्वेश्चन? दे आर ब्रेकिंग डाउन द मॉडल एंड थ्योरी इनटू स्मॉल पार्ट्स, स्मॉल सेगमेंट्स, एंड दे आर आस्किंग क्वेश्चंस ऑन दोस. ठीक है, सो थर्ड टाइप इज द पार्ट्स दे आर आस्किंग. Like for example, you might have seen the question on isodopane, isotim. ठीक है, इफ यू गो लिटिल बिग बैक, और ये ट्रेंड अभी से नहीं है, पहले भी था, बट इट वाज मोर ओकेजनल. नाउ इट हैज बिकम मोर रेगुलर. ठीक है, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल उन्होंने अभी 2 साल पहले रोस्टो मॉडल से पूछा था, आई थिंक ड्राइव टुवर्ड्स मेच्योरिटी पूछा था, और एज ऑफ हाई मास कंजम्पशन स्टेज के बारे में पूछा था. ठीक है, so that is all they have asked. They asked from the Peru and Woodville से क्वेश्चन पूछा था, फॉरवर्ड और बैकवर्ड लिंकेजेस वाला. ठीक है, सो व्हाट दे आर आस्किंग, दे आर ऑल्सो आस्किंग पार्ट्स फ्रॉम इट. तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर मैं वॉन थ्यूनेन की बात करूं तो पीछे जाकर के देखूं तो कैन यू सी देयर वाज वन क्वेश्चन, राइट अ शॉर्ट नोट ऑन आइसोलेटेड स्टेट्स. ठीक है, एंड व्हेन दिस वाज आस्क्ड इन 2002, और काफी टाइम से पूछा नहीं गया. दैट मीन्स इफ दे आर आस्किंग फ्रॉम हियर, देयर इज अ हाई पॉसिबिलिटी इट कैन बी आस्क्ड एज अ शॉर्ट नोट. ठीक है, सो वी हैव टू बी रेडी टू राइट आंसर्स इवन ऑन सच टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस. सो अपना क्वेश्चन करते हैं. इनफैक्ट अगर पीछे जाओगे तो लैंड रेंट पे भी एक क्वेश्चन पूछा है. लाइक फॉर एग्जाम्पल क्वेश्चन नंबर 5, राइट अ शॉर्ट एक्सप्लेनेटरी नोट ऑन वॉन थ्यूनेन्स कंसेप्ट ऑफ इकोनॉमिक रेंट. ठीक है, so here I have taken examine the concept and implications of land rent theory. I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, so the question is asking about examine the concept and implications of land rent theory. So there is, you have to explain the concept and implications. मतलब यहाँ पर है what is essentially the utility of the concept. ठीक है. So if we talk about the land rent, हम अपना आंसर स्टार्ट ही कर सकते हैं. कैन वी से हियर, एक इंट्रोडक्शन लिखने का एक बहुत सारे तरीके होते हैं. एक तरीका होता है आई कैन स्टार्ट विथ व्हाट इट इज द कंसेप्ट विच हैज बीन आस्क्ड. जनरली मैं ये फॉर्मूला तब लगाता हूं जब वो कंसेप्ट थोड़ा सा टिपिकल होता है. बहुत इजी कंसेप्ट है, लाइक इफ सपोज क्वेश्चन इज ऑन फ्लड्स, सो आई विल नॉट स्टार्ट विथ व्हाट इज फ्लड्स बिकॉज बच्चे को भी पता है व्हाट इज फ्लड्स. ठीक है. But when we are talking about a typical concept like land rent, it has a definition and not everyone will understand what exactly technically what is land rent. So there I can definitely use this methodology of writing the introduction. So यहाँ पर definitely we can start with what is land rent. So land rent is the payment of tribute. So what it is? It is the payment of tribute to the landowner for use of geographical space or natural resources in a given specific place. ठीक है. So what it is? It is payment of the tribute to the landowner. So why the landowner is authorized to get this tribute? Because he owns the land. He has the ownership of it. So this is what we mean by the land rent. So ये एक लाइन हमारा इंट्रोडक्शन हो सकता है. After that I will start writing about the concept of land rent. So concept if you talk about in the main body, यहाँ से main body start हो. So concept was originally developed with respect to agricultural land. Okay. And it was in fact Adam Smith who first discussed this concept of land rent. But if you talk about this concept of land rent, it was developed most by Ricardo. Okay. So what was the view of Ricardo? So Ricardo's idea, if you talk about, it was based upon the concept of extensive differential rent. ठीक है. So what is this extensive differential rent? Suppose करो कि हम एक बेस लाइन ले लेते. ठीक है. So if we are taking a baseline value, and what is this baseline? This baseline is the theoretical worst possible land. ठीक है. It is the theoretical worst possible land. So this is the baseline. As I told you before कि land rent का concept का origin किस में हुआ? Agriculture में. ठीक है. So with respect to what? With respect to production. इस land से worst production होगा almost nil के बराबर. ठीक है. Now if I take the actual piece of land and I compare, so whatever the extra production that will be coming out from the actual piece of land compared to this worst possible land is the profit which will be made. ठीक है. And part of it will essentially go to the landowner. If landowner himself is cultivating, then the entire profit will become the land rent. If someone else is cultivating, then part of this profit will go to the landowner. ठीक है. So that was the basic conception of Ricardo. So he presented the concept of extensive differential land. It is the difference in the land rent of a place. Land rent basically होता क्या है? वॉन थ्यूनेन पढ़ा है. लैंड रेंट वॉन थ्यूनेन में क्या है? इट इज द प्रॉफिट विच इज मेड. ठीक है. So land rent of a place with respect to the productivity of the worst land used for production. So worst land is used as base where the price of agricultural production from the land would be equal to the cost incurred. Thus, according to him, land rent is the profit which the better yield would provide. Okay? So, this is the concept which was given by Ricardo. What is the utility of this concept? Implication भी हमें लिखना है साथ में. It would be better कि उसके साथ साथ implications भी लिखते हुए चलें. So, what is the utility of this concept? Can we say this concept will allow us to compare various pieces of land depending upon their attributes? Okay. So this concept, what it does, it allows to put prices of land on the basis of its qualities with respect to fertility. With respect to fertility. ठीक है. So clearly the more fertile land will be priced more compared to if you talk about the less fertile. बट इसका अपना लिमिटेशन है. और इसका क्या लिमिटेशन है? कैन वी से इफ वी लुक इनटू द वर्ल्ड, फॉर एग्जांपल, इट इज नॉट नेसेसरी दैट द प्राइस ऑफ द लैंड इज ऑलवेज इन कॉन्सोनेंस विद द क्वालिटी ऑफ द लैंड, फर्टिलिटी ऑफ द लैंड. ठीक है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर मुझे जाकर के बिहार में जमीन खरीदनी है तो बहुत सस्ते में मिल जाएगी. बट इफ आई वॉन्ट टू बाई land, even the fertility is not as high as it is in Bihar, in western UP, then it will be very costly. ठीक है. So what is the limitation in Ricardo's idea? He did not look into the locational aspect of the land. He was more concerned, location जो होता है दो तरीके से होता है, absolute and relative. So he was more concerned with the absolute qualities of the land rather than with the relative qualities of the land. ठीक है. So he neglected that. और इसको if you talk about who has taken this into account, it is von Thunen. ठीक है. So von Thunen, what he did, he brought the spatial dimension into the concept of land rent. ठीक है. So it was more of a geographical concept. He made it more of a geographical concept. His concept was also based on agricultural land use. So if you talk about, in case of von Thunen, von Thunen मॉडल क्या कहता है? Here is the land rent, and he talks about this is the market, here is the distance. So what essentially happens? Certain type of commodities, what is the land rent curve? It is very steep. There are other type of commodities. First type of commodities कौन सी हैं? Like commodity A, these are bulky and perishable commodities. So bulky and perishable commodities. Then there is a second type of commodities which are whose land rent curve are not as steep as the first one. So if you talk about this second type, B type of commodities are mainly grains. And then if you talk about, there is a third type of commodities whose land rent curves are much more gentle. ठीक है, एंड ये कौन से हैं? These are mostly the meat and dairy products. ठीक है, डेयरी भी दो तरीके का होता है, you can understand. So it is mostly the meat and livestock impact. So von Thunen, what was his contribution in the concept of land rent? He added to the cost also the cost of transportation. Okay. Thus he added the total cost of production, which also included production and distribution. So there was also addition of the cost of transportation, and on the basis of that, then he calculated the land rent. Thus, he looks for the land rent from the perspective of relative location. Okay. So he is looking from the perspective of relative location. In fact, you know, his model is one of the first locational analysis model of social sciences, okay, which was later imported into geography in 1950s. Okay. So this is the contribution of von Thunen in land rent. So अगर इसके implications की बात करें, so what are the implications? Can we say using this model we can better understand the value of land? Yes or no? So using this model, better understanding of the value of land can be achieved. Then और क्या हो सकता है? Can we say it also explains, helps in understanding the pattern of agriculture? ठीक है. So it also helps in understanding the locational pattern of agriculture. ठीक है. और जब भी इस तरह के स्टेटमेंट्स लिखते हो, ऑलवेज ट्राई टू गिव एग्जांपल्स. लाइक फर्स्ट में अभी हमने बिहार और यूपी का एग्जांपल दिया था. कैन इट बी साइटेड हियर? सिमिलरली इफ यू टॉक अबाउट लोकेशनल पैटर्न ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर, so for example, if we talk about why in India, in a state like Bihar, there is mostly subsistence agriculture, can we explain that? What is the reason? Can we say there is absence of agricultural markets? Like for example, Bihar is a state where we do not find presence of any APMC mandi. Okay. So thus what is there? There is presence of such kind of subsistence agriculture. Distance is too much far. Okay. So it helps in understanding this as well. His model, if you talk about it, also can be extended to understand other land use patterns. Okay. So his concept of land rent can be extended to understand other land use patterns. other type of land use patterns. Like for example, ये मैं अभी समझाऊंगा क्योंकि जो नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है उसमें आई हैव टेकन अप this point. Like for example, we will see how it is helpful in understanding the morphology of the city. Where will be the CBD, where will be the residential zones, which will be the agricultural zones. ठीक है. So again this model can be used for this purpose also. Urban land use को समझने के लिए भी इसको यूज किया गया. ठीक है. Similarly, it can be also used for understanding industrial patterns के लिए भी यूज किया जा सकता है. ठीक है. तो ये वॉन थ्यूनेन वाली जो यूटिलिटी वाला है अभी आएगा इन मोर डिटेल. आई विल टॉक अबाउट दैट. So that is the case of von Thunen. Then another conception of land rent was given by Marx and Engels. So a critical conception of land rent has been provided by Marx and Engels. ठीक है. So what is the basic idea of Marx and Engels? They treat the concept of land rent essentially as an exploitative tool. Exploitative tool in the hand of rich. Hand of rich. So through this tool, what they are doing exploitation of the poor. They consider the concept of land rent as a case of social injustice. As a case of social injustice. So why they believe it is social injustice? Marx was a firm believer in the fact that whatever we are talking about, the resources which are there are two types of commodities. One is the commodities which are naturally available, in which there is no involvement of human labor in their production. ठीक है. So such type of commodities, if you talk about, according to Marx, these are common property resources. There can be no private ownership over such kind of commodities. Land is one such commodity where there should be, which should be treated as common property resource. ठीक है. On the other hand, when we are treating it essentially as some people are given ownership, then essentially what happens? We are violating this principle of natural justice. ठीक है. लैंड को बनाने में कोई लेबर गया है क्या किसी का? It is already given. So they talk about historically what happened in Europe. Suppose there was this piece of land which was there. Early case was that of primitive communism. So whoever was born on the surface of the earth will have access to some part of the land for his or her survival. ठीक है. So distribution was to everyone. And ownership was to the broad community rather than to the individuals. ठीक है. What happened? This concept was changed in Europe, whereby the king decided that they have to increase the intensity of agriculture. They have to increase the productivity of agriculture. And for that, what was required? That there should be essentially more investment. Okay. In agriculture. Also, it would become easier for the kings to collect the land rent from the people. Okay. And it would also create a class which would essentially be with the king in case of if there is a kind of revolt. So they created a system which is referred to as feudalistic system. Okay. So in feudalistic system, what essentially happens? The land ownership was given to few individuals. Okay. So there was this land, suppose big piece of land was just given to two people. They became the owner. They were the feudal landlords. and essentially from here the society was divided into two classes. One was that of the rich feudal landlords and other was the poor peasants. And from here, if we look into the present form of inequality, it has its birth if you talk about here. In fact, बाद में जो ये फ्यूडल लैंडलॉर्ड्स थे, these people became the capitalists. ठीक है, so they imbibe the concept of social injustice. They treat it as an exploitative tool in the hands of rich to exploit the poor people. So that is the conception which has been given by Marx and Engels. So what is the implication of this conception? इसका क्या implication है? Can we say that main implication is that it provides an alternative view to understand the present problems confronting the society, like inequality. ठीक है, so that is about this question. Moving on. Next question is, discuss the relevance of von Thunen's model on agriculture location in contemporary context. This is a previous year question. ठीक है, इसको करने की कोशिश करो. You take 3-4 minutes and properly try to frame the answer of this question. रिमेंबर, यही इसी तरह के जो क्वेश्चंस होते हैं एग्जाम में, दे पुश योर स्कोर अबव 270 280. ठीक है, जो डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चन आ रहे हैं तो उसमें तो सबके लगभग एक जैसे ही मार्क्स हैं, लेकिन ये इस तरह के क्वेश्चन जिसमें हम ऑलरेडी प्रिपेयर्ड हैं, these are the type of question they will determine your score. Whether in this, suppose it was if 20 marker, whether you will be getting 15-16 marks or whether you will be getting 7-8 marks. मैंने बोला ना कि उसको हम अभी इसमें करेंगे, बहुत सारी चीजें मैंने छोड़ दी. Okay, so suppose if I am writing this question, ये क्वेश्चन बहुत चैलेंजिंग भी है, ठीक है. फॉर मेनी पीपल दिस क्वेश्चन कैन बी एक्चुअली अ ग्रेव यार्ड एज वेल. वाई? बिकॉज दे विल नॉट रीड द क्वेश्चन प्रॉपरली, एंड नॉट रीडिंग द क्वेश्चन प्रॉपरली वुड मीन कि ज़रूरत से ज़्यादा जोश में आ जाएंगे, और ज़रूरत से ज़्यादा जोश में आने के बाद जितना आता है उतना लिख दो. दिस इज व्हाट हैपन्स without actually calculating into how much for what part should be written. ठीक है. So suppose I was writing an introduction here. अब इंट्रोडक्शन में what is the primary keyword? Relevance of von Thunen model in contemporary context. Remember, introduction is the window towards your answer. It is like a window into your answer. And जो विंडो है, हमेशा अगर मुझे अपने घर की कोई विंडो लोगों को दिखानी है तो वो विंडो सबसे बढ़िया कमरे में खुलनी चाहिए. ठीक है. इट इज समथिंग लाइक दैट. एंड अगर मैंने स्टार्टिंग में ही रबिश लिख दिया तो देन द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ द एग्जामिनर विल गो डाउन. तो कैन आई थिंक ऑफ समथिंग लाइक the recent rise of agrarian crisis across the world, या फिर हम इसमें ज़्यादा स्पेसिफिक भी हो सकते हैं. यू नो, दिस agrarian crisis, agrarian movements have been going on in many countries, not only in India. So there was similar type of, if you talk about movement going on in France, Spain, United States. ठीक है. You might be aware, कनाडा में भी फार्मर्स ने ट्रक रैली निकाली थी. ठीक है. So you can be more specific here. So agrarian crisis across the world or across those countries has again brought into focus the ideas of von Thunen. ठीक है. तो देखो, मैंने यहां पर जो इंट्रोडक्शन लिखा, क्या ये इंट्रोडक्शन डायरेक्टली क्वेश्चन को टारगेट कर रहा है? ठीक है. मैं और भी चीजों से स्टार्ट कर सकता था, लेकिन मैंने जो कंटेम्पररी एंगल था उसी से स्टार्ट किया. ठीक है. देन मेन बॉडी. हियर इज द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज. सो व्हाट इज द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज? Biggest challenge is to write a summary of the von Thunen model in maximum 30-40 words. इससे ज़्यादा स्पेस नहीं है हमारे पास लिखने के लिए. ठीक है. सो one part will be summary in 30-40 words. So something like this we can write. Von Thunen developed a positivist deductive model to understand the agricultural location pattern on the basis of land rent in an isolated agricultural estate. आइसोलेटेड एग्रीकल्चरल एस्टेट. ठीक है, अब इससे ज्यादा लिखने के लिए मेरे पास स्पेस नहीं है. एक लाइन ज्यादा से ज्यादा मैं लिख सकता हूं, एंड ज्यादा से ज्यादा मैं क्या कर सकता हूं, इसको डिफाइन कर सकता हूं. ठीक है, so the land rent or the profits, they are essentially what? They are the price minus cost. Cost is दो तरह की cost होती है. What is? One is the cost of production and second is the cost of transportation. ठीक है, अब मेरे पास चॉइस है कि मैं इसको लिख के बताऊं सेंटेंस में या फिर सीधे इक्वेशन लिख दूं. That can also work. ठीक है, so I can write here the equation and then what I'll do, I'll make this diagram. ये डायग्राम एक बना दिया, और इसको कैसे बनाना है डायग्राम को, पेज में एक तरफ ये वाला डायग्राम बनाओ और एक तरफ स्पेशल पैटर्न का डायग्राम. ठीक है, वी डोंट हैव टू वेस्ट द पेज. आइडियली स्पीकिंग ये पूरा का पूरा एक पेज में आ जाना चाहिए. ठीक है, इफ इट इज अ 20 मार्कर, आई हैव गॉट नाउ 3 पेजेस लेफ्ट, बिकॉज एग्जाम में हमें 4 पेज मिलते. और उसके बाद केवल और केवल किस पे फोकस करना है, रेलेवेंस. ठीक है, सो इफ वी टॉक अबाउट द रेलेवेंस इन कंटेम्पररी टाइम्स, कभी कभी एक और चीज ध्यान में रखनी चाहिए. आई ऑलवेज से दिस, इफ आई एम गुड इन समथिंग, ठीक है, लोगों को बताना पड़ता है, बार बार बताना पड़ता है आई एम गुड इन समथिंग, अदरवाइज दे विल फॉरगेट. तो अगर मैं अच्छा टीचर हूं तो मुझे बार बार बताना पड़ेगा कि अच्छा टीचर, देन पीपल विल रिमेंबर. सेम थिंग इन आंसर राइटिंग, द कीवर्ड्स विच आर गिवन इन द क्वेश्चन, always try to use them when you are making headings. ठीक है, तो यहां पर मैं डेफिनेटली, मैंने केवल अभी रेलेवेंस लिखा था, मुझसे गलती हुई. आई शुड राइट रेलेवेंस इन कंटेम्पररी टाइम्स, and then you start writing about the relevance in contemporary times. So it has lots of relevance. One category of relevance, if you talk about, it is related with agriculture sector. Agriculture development. ठीक है, और it helps us in number of things in agriculture. One, it helps in understanding of agricultural intensity. ठीक है, so what it helps in? It helps in understanding of agricultural intensity. So here definitely I can talk about the von Thunen's idea. What was the basic idea of von Thunen? Here lies the intensity of agriculture, and here is the market, here is the distance. And he definitely found what? There is a application of distance decay. Distance decay. ठीक है, और इसका एग्जाम्पल कहां पर मिलता है हमें? in case of Europe, the agricultural intensity. शायद मैंने दिया होगा डायग्राम. You see, this is the agricultural intensity diagram. So when we are near, this is the most urbanized part of Europe. So when we are here near this most urbanized part, this is can be treated as a market, major market. So here when we are, we find that the agricultural intensity is high, 150. As we are moving away, what we find? There is decline in agricultural intensity. Okay. So as the distance increases away from the market, there is decline in agricultural intensity. And his model, this is applicable in Europe at a larger scale. Because if you talk about Europe, it has become a unified market. Okay. And there is development of transportation networks, well developed infrastructure. So ये जो southern England, southeast England है, you know, this is the most urbanized part, and this Benelux countries, there is almost 100% urbanization. So that is first point लिख सकते हैं. Then second point, it also helps in understanding the cropping pattern. क्रॉपिंग पैटर्न. ठीक है. और क्रॉपिंग पैटर्न को अंडरस्टैंड करने के लिए वन एग्जाम्पल डेफिनेटली कैन बी टेकन ऑफ द अमेरिकाज एग्रीकल्चरल रीजन्स. ठीक है. सो यू कैन सी दिस इज द अमेरिकाज एग्रीकल्चरल रीजन्स. इसको सिंप्लीफाई करके ये डायग्राम बनता है. सो व्हाट वी फाइंड, यू नो, दिस इज द मेन मार्केट. दिस इज द, ये क्या है यहां पर, दिस इज द लार्जेस्ट कॉनरबेशन ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. ठीक है. फ्रॉम बोस्टन टू वॉशिंगटन, दिस इज द लार्जेस्ट कॉनरबेशन ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. दिस रीजन इज रेफर्ड टू एज द एटलांटिक सीबोर्ड रीजन. ठीक है. सो इफ यू टॉक अबाउट as predicted by von Thunen, we find that similar kind of things are there to be found. So first ring में von Thunen के क्या मिलता है? We find that there is dairying and market gardening activities are taking place. So reason is very simple, because they are bulky and perishable. So here also we find market gardening and dairying is near to this. So you can see there is vegetables and dairy. Von Thunen के केस में it was, the second ring was for what? Forest. It was for fuel wood. ठीक है. It was basically fuel wood. Why? Because at that time charcoal was the main source of fuel. But today the technology has changed, and as a result the second ring is missing in this case. As soon as we go out of that, what we are finding, we find that, can you see this? Corn, soybean, you are finding that there is wheat and some general agricultural products. ठीक है. Cotton and tobacco. So again, what we are finding as we go away, we find that the grain farming belt is also to be found. Von Thunen के मॉडल में थर्ड, फोर्थ एंड फिफ्थ, ये सारे के सारे कौन से थे? They were the grain farming rings, the grain farming belts. ठीक है. So again we find that there is presence of that grain farming belt here. As you go out of this zone, what you are finding? You are finding that there is the beef, cattle and sheep. That means there is presence of the sixth ring, that is the livestock. Livestock products belt is also found. Today, because there is no so much use of the wood, charcoal, so the second ring has been now pushed where? At the outermost. Because again, US is what? It is a single country, unified market is present in Europe, well developed railroad network, as a result of which what has happened, the rings of von Thunen here, they have taken a continental scale. ठीक है? So again, it is helping us in understanding the cropping pattern. इसका और एग्जाम्पल ले सकते हैं क्रॉपिंग पैटर्न का. ये तो एक एग्जाम्पल हो गया. दूसरा एग्जाम्पल जो हमने बात किया था पहले, पंजाब और आसाम. पंजाब में व्हाट टाइप ऑफ क्रॉपिंग पैटर्न वी आर फाइंडिंग? कैन वी से इट इज मोर कमर्शियल फार्मिंग? ठीक है. So here there is a more commercial farming practice. Here if you talk about, there is presence of subsistence farming. Again you know कि पंजाब में जो average distance between the APMC मंडी, which is the main rural market, agricultural market, and the farms, they are located at a distance of maximum 6 kilometer radius. ठीक है. सो इन पंजाब द APMC mandis and the farms, this distance is less than 6 kilometers. ठीक है. एंड क्लियरली हमें यह पता है कि अगर सीधी सी बात है, यहाँ पे अगर इंटेंसिटी ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर है और यहाँ पे अगर मार्केट है, तो जैसे जैसे हम दूर जाते जाएंगे इंटेंसिटी क्या होती जा रही है? कम होती जा रही है. यानी कि यहाँ पर हमें किस तरह की फार्मिंग मिलेगी? कमर्शियल फार्मिंग. एंड हियर वी विल बी फाइंडिंग सबसिस्टेंस फार्मिंग. ठीक है. सो द सेम थिंग हियर इन केस ऑफ आसाम. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट दिस डिस्टेंस इज ओवर 36 किलोमीटर मिनिमम. So it also helps basically in understanding the type of cropping pattern which is found across the world. ठीक है. Then एक तीसरा पॉइंट भी लिख सकते हैं, इसी का बेसिस, इसी का आगे लिख सकते हैं. Does it means that it also helps in agricultural planning? Yes or no? So for example, if India की अगर हम बात करें, what is the biggest problem of India? In India there is presence of subsistence agriculture. ठीक है. So if we want to convert our subsistence agriculture to commercial agriculture, this is our target. What should be done? Can we say we should increase agricultural intensity? Agricultural intensity should be increased. You can understand, अगर हम एग्रीकल्चरल इंटेंसिटी को इंक्रीज करेंगे तो क्या होगा? प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ेगी, प्रोडक्शन बढ़ेगा. एंड इफ प्रोडक्टिविटी एंड प्रोडक्शन इज इंक्रीजिंग, डज इट मीन्स दैट द फार्मर्स विल हैव मोर सरप्लस, एंड दिस सरप्लस कैन अगेन बी इन्वेस्टेड to increase the productivity and production, and definitely this means there now this surplus can be sold in the markets. ठीक है. But again the same thing, for this to happen, what is required? Can we say these are required? Markets, assured market opportunities for the farmers is required. Can we say this is the reason the Agricultural Reform Commission of 1970s had recommended establishment of network network of APMC mandis at a distance of 5 kilometers from the farms. From the farms. Can we say this idea has been again reiterated by the doubling of farmers income commission? ठीक है, so doubling of farmers income commission क्या कह रहा है? वो कह रहा है कि किलोमीटर से कैलकुलेट मत करो, you calculate it in terms of travel time. ठीक है, so it has replaced this with the travel time of 1 hour. ठीक है, so that is basically what that is essentially part of the agricultural planning. So there also we find there is essentially utility of the von Thunen model. Then von Thunen model is also helpful. Second category, एक तो एग्रीकल्चर के ऊपर लिखेंगे जिसमें काफी पॉइंट हो सकते हैं. फिर सेकेंड कैटेगरी आ गई हमारी अदर लैंड यूजेस. अदर लैंड यूजेस. सो अदर लैंड यूजेस की जब हम बात करते हैं, वन इज विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू अर्बन लैंड यूज. ठीक है, यहां पर मैंने ये डायग्राम दे रखा है. सो यू सी हाउ इट हेल्प्स इन अंडरस्टैंडिंग द अर्बन लैंड यूज. सो on this side there is ability to pay land rent. ठीक है, and this is the distance, this is the center of the city. So what is happening? There are certain type of activities whose ability to pay land rent is high. CBD activities, these are mainly what, retail shops. ठीक है, और रिटेल शॉप्स को क्या हम कह सकते हैं कि इनको ज्यादा बड़ी जगह की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती है. ठीक है, and because of that, even if the rent is high, they will be able to pay. Also, the CBD, the center, is the most accessible part of the city. ठीक है, that means being located here, what will happen to their profits? They will earn higher profits by being located in the center, and that is why they are, when they are near the center, their profits are quite high. The land rent और प्रॉफिट्स आर हाई, सो देयर एबिलिटी टू पे लैंड रेंट इज हाई. बट जैसे ही वो दूर जा रहे हैं, एक्सेसिबिलिटी कम हो गई, एंड एज द एक्सेसिबिलिटी डिक्लाइंस, देयर सेल डिक्लाइंस, एंड दस व्हाट हैपेंस, द एबिलिटी टू पे लैंड रेंट शार्पली डिक्लाइंस. ठीक है, सो ये हो गया. उसके बाहर देन कम्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग. कैन वी से मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इज ऑल्सो कमर्शियल एक्टिविटी? एंड मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में there is no doubt there is good profit, but also do they require more land than retail? Retail and wholesale से ज्यादा लैंड चाहिए होती है उसको. ठीक है, so if they remain in the center, there is a problem, their cost will increase. So what they will prefer, they don't want to go also too much away, so they'll prefer to remain near the center but not exactly at the center. So this is the curve of their land rent paying ability. Then after that is the residential. Their curve of the land rent paying ability is comparatively more gentle because they don't have the money of the commercial scale. But can you understand, they are also working where? In the center is their workplaces. So again, they cannot afford to live too much far away. So there is residential. Agriculture has the least ability to pay the land rent. That is why it will be found in the outskirts of the city. So essentially we will be finding, thus there will be CBD which will be created, which will be dominated by which type of activity? Retail and wholesale. ठीक है, outside this जो कंसेंट्रिक जोन मॉडल होता है, उसमें जोन 2 क्या होता है? इट इज अ ट्रांजिशन जोन वेयर देयर इज लोकेशन ऑफ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एंड स्लम प्रॉपर्टी इज ऑल्सो फाउंड देयर. ठीक है. सो इन जोन 2 वी फाइंड देयर इज प्रेजेंस ऑफ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एंड आफ्टर दैट कम्स द रेसिडेंशियल सेक्टर्स एंड बियॉन्ड दीज रेसिडेंशियल सेक्टर जो जोन 5 है जिसमें नया रेसिडेंशियल सेक्टर बन रहा है, दैट इज बेसिकली व्हाट दिस एग्रीकल्चर लैंड. ठीक है. सो दैट एक्सप्लेन्स द लैंड यूज पैटर्न which is found in the cities. So again, von Thunen model can be understood from this perspective as well. So एक तो urban land use हो गया, then location of industries. With respect to the location of industries, तो location of industries को भी एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हैं. जैसे अभी हमने देखा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कहां पर लोकेटेड था, विद इन द सिटी. बट विथ रेस्पेक्ट टू अदर लोकेशन ऑफ सिटी, लाइक फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ वी टेक द केस ऑफ ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री इन इंडिया, सो अगर हम ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री इन इंडिया की बात करें तो कैन वी से मोस्टली इट इज मार्केट बेस्ड लोकेशन मिलता है हमें इसका. ठीक है. सो ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री हमें कहां पर मिलता है? अगर मेन मार्केट है सपोज हमारा दिल्ली इज अवर मेन मार्केट, सो ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री हमें कहां पर मिल रहा है? इट इज फाउंड टू बी लोकेटेड नॉट इन दिल्ली बट इन मनेसर. इट इज फाउंड टू बी लोकेटेड इन ग्रेटर नोएडा. ठीक है. सो इट इज नॉट एग्जैक्टली लोकेटेड इन दिल्ली. सिमिलरली if suppose the main market is Indore, so it is not located in Indore, it is located where? It is located in Pithampura. ठीक है. Similarly if the main market is Mumbai, it is found to be located where? In Pune, not in Mumbai. So can we say again the same concept of ability to pay the land rent is there within the city, because automobile industry will require very huge amount piece of land. Okay, so it is not economically feasible for the companies to be located in the city. So they tend to be located outside the city, near the cities or near the market. ठीक है. So again, if we just tweak the von Thunen model and also include the factor of opportunity cost, ठीक है, then his model can be used to understand the other type of land uses as well. ठीक है. और भी चीजें समझा सकते हैं. Like for example, in recent times there is a phenomena taking place in the developed countries, and this phenomena is referred to as deindustrialization. Deindustrialization. ठीक है. And along with this there is phenomena of delocalization taking place. ठीक है. So deindustrialization, delocalization. Deindustrialization क्या होता है? I think I have explained you. So deindustrialization is the change in the structure of economy from manufacturing to services. ठीक है. So it is change in the structure of economy from manufacturing to services. Delocalization अगर ऐसा चेंज होगा तो इंडस्ट्रीज भी शिफ्ट हो जाएंगी, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडस्ट्रीज. तो डीलोकलाइजेशन इज शिफ्टिंग ऑफ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडस्ट्रीज फ्रॉम core zones or core economies to new areas. ठीक है, so these new areas can be even within the same developed country or it can be in the developing. Cotton industry is an example in case of India. Pharmaceutical industry if you talk about is an example. ठीक है, so several, सबसे इसका एक सबसे अच्छा एग्जाम्पल है मेड इन चाइना, वो तो पूरा का पूरा यही है. ठीक है, so deindustrialization and delocalization. So why this deindustrialization? One of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons. So if you take for example, अगर हम केस लें जापान का, so in Japan it has been found in recent times or earlier Japan there was presence of manufacturing which included development of iron and steel, very very important. There was development of textiles, chemicals. So several such type of industries were located. Now what is happening? Such heavy manufacturing industries today have been replaced in Japan by high-end manufacturing industries, like for example, electronics. So such type of manufacturing industries and सर्विस सेक्टर इंडस्ट्री. ठीक है, इसी का एक और एग्जांपल लेते हैं इसी तरह से. फॉर एग्जांपल टेक द केस ऑफ न्यूयॉर्क इन यूएस. So earlier in New York, it was important center for production of textiles. It was important center for production of paper. It was important center for production of chemicals. Today what has happened? Now again it is dominated by service sector industries. टेक्सटाइल खत्म ही हो गया वहां से. ठीक है, सो कैन वी से व्हाई? कैन वी से बिकॉज दीज इंडस्ट्रीज आर मोर प्रॉफिट मेकिंग एंड कैन वी से देयर एबिलिटी टू पे द लैंड रेंट इज हायर. ठीक है, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट दे हैव बीन रिप्लेस्ड. So this also explains the delocalization of the industries which is taking place. ठीक है, so obviously if you talk about, essentially this is the contemporary relevance of the von Thunen model in the present times. अब यहां पर एक ये डिस्कशन की भी बात कर रहा है, एक डिस्कस फैक्टर भी है. ठीक है, तो डिस्कस में हम बेसिकली क्या लिख सकते हैं? हम लिख सकते हैं कि क्योंकि बहुत ज्यादा लिखने के लिए नहीं है क्रिटिसिज्म, हम यहाँ पे क्रिटिसिज्म नहीं लिखना. ठीक है, यहां पर हमें लिखना है रेलेवेंस की बात कर. तो हम जो रेलेवेंस लिख रहे थे उससे उठा करके एक दो एग्जाम्पल लिख सकते हैं टू एक्सप्लेन दैट द थिंग्स आर मोर कॉम्प्लिकेटेड देन इट वाज विजुअलाइज्ड बाय वॉन थ्यूमन. ठीक है, तो इसका एक एग्जाम्पल लूं. अभी हम बात कर रहे थे डी इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन एंड डी लोकलाइजेशन ऑफ द इंडस्ट्रीज. There are other factors also which have led to, if you talk about delocalization of the industries, beside the factor only of the land. ठीक है, like for example, if you talk about the cost, industries के लोकेशन में एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर होता है फैक्टर कॉस्ट. ठीक है, सो व्हाट हैज हैपेंड, ये जो सिटीज जहां से ये माइग्रेशन हो रहा है इंडस्ट्रीज का, these are the places which can be referred to as agglomeration. ठीक है, so if there is phenomenon of agglomeration taking place, tell me over a period of time, can we say there will be congestion? ठीक है, and if there is congestion, does it means that there will be increase in cost? Everything will become costly. ठीक है, So agglomeration and the related congestion is also one of the factors. Because of this congestion, there are other problems also taking place. For example, if there is so much congestion, will there be increase in the travel time? Yes or no? And does it means that it will decrease the productivity of the labor? Okay, so that is another factor. Similarly, the Marxist geographers believe that the delocalization of the industries, the shifting of the industries, it is also because these are the core zones of industrialization, traditional industrial areas. Okay, so they believe that the traditional industrial areas are characterized by organized labor movements and unions. Okay, so if there is presence of organized labor movements and unions, can we say that the bargaining power of the labor with respect to their cost, will it increase? Okay, it will also increase. So it is a kind of conscious attempts by the capitalists to shift the industries away from such zones where such labor unions are developed. ठीक है, और ये बहुत क्लियरली दिखाई भी पड़ता है. यू सी, अगर हम देखें तो ये जो इतनी नई इंडस्ट्रीज जो आ रही हैं, वो सब जो वर्कर्स हैं, जो लेबर्स हैं, उनको टाइटल दे रहे हैं दिस मैनेजर, दैट मैनेजर. ठीक है, एंड दे विल केयरफुली लुक इनटू कि यूनियनिज्म ना हो. ठीक है, सो दैट इज ऑल्सो वन ऑफ द रीजंस. तो ये एक एग्जाम्पल साइड करके हम कह सकते हैं कि द प्रोसेस is more complex than it was visualized by von Neumann. ठीक है, so that is basically this question number 11. So we'll stop and we'll take a break. 4:30 पे start करेंगे फिर से.